Turning our attention back to Washington, while the White House and Justice Department do their thing, Congress is doing something truly shocking. They're having bipartisan talks on health care. I know it sounds crazy to me, too, but here was some insight into the future of health care, tax reform, and other Capitol Hill goings-on is Congressman Stephen Lynch. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to see you, John.
Before we get to all that, Washington Post transcripts of conversations the President of the United States had with leaders of Australia and Mexico leaked to the Washington Post. At least Mexico, I think, really embarrassing for the President, contradicting what he says publicly on the wall. I don't want to talk about that, though. Aren't Democrats, or shouldn't Democrats, be just as upset as Donald Trump is about the leaks of verbatim conversations he has with foreign leaders?
Yeah, I mean...
Well, that's a reluctant yeah, isn't it?
Under normal circumstances, but I think it sheds some light. These are not falsehoods. You know, these are discussions.
You're a
that
foreign leader.
happening.
Why would you ever have a candid conversation with the President of the United States if you think that there's a possibility your candid words are going to be in the Washington Post or the New York Times?
I understand. No, there would be zero chance of that happening if that were the case.
So are Democrats going to side with him, or is there such tension between Trump and the Democrats that it's going to be what you said a second ago? Let's worry about how embarrassing and contradictory what he had to say was.
Well, I think the greatest damage has come out of the president's mouth himself, and not leaked conversations, things that he has said publicly. So he's got problems, but I don't think closing the leaks is going to solve his problems.
You know, speaking of solving his problems, a lot of people think the thing to solve his problems is a guy you know, General Kelly, a local guy right from this neighborhood, who is now obviously chief of staff with the disappearance of Reince Priebus. What do you think of Kelly, and what do you think about his qualifications for this job?
I think John Kelly's a great American. I really do. I had some time in Iraq on a couple of occasions to spend some time with him. He was great to me when he was with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. He was the head over there. I took a few Codels into Iraq. He was out in Anbar province where some of the toughest fighting was going on. Then I got to spend a week with him at the Munich Security Conference. So really? I feel I know him pretty well, and he's been very much, reaching out when he was with the Department of Homeland Security there. So I have strong confidence. Look, the one thing about John Kelly is that he is doing this because of his love for this country, bottom line.
But in his Homeland Security capacity, has he been a great American implementing a policy where it hasn't been the so-called bad hombres, but low-hanging fruit like Francisco Rodriguez and people like that who've played by all the rules and then some once they came here? That's on Kelly's watch.
Well, when we had him in to the Democratic conference, he said, "My responsibility is to enforce the law, and if you would like the law to be different, you have the power to change it." That was his approach. Putting it right back, if we want the law to be different, then change it.
Can we switch to the other side of the aisle a minute? Chuck Schumer is obviously the leader of the Democrats, not in your chamber of the Senate. Comes out of a conference or a caucus of Democratic leaders in Virginia and is candid enough to say too many Americans don't know what we Democrats stand for. And I'll add to that by saying they do know that Democrats stand for opposing Donald Trump. What do Democrats, when you're asked, I'm asking you, what do Democrats stand for other than against Donald Trump in 2017?
I stand for working people. I really do.
What does that mean?
Well, the people that I represent in my district are just regular people who go out and work very hard, try to raise their families, make sure they have a decent standard of living, love their country, send their kids into the service, believe in America as being not just a place but of an idea of opportunity. Those are the people that I represent.
But a lot of those people, as you well know, voted for Donald Trump. And interestingly, the Quinnipiac poll that came out yesterday said that working class demographic, white Americans without a college education for the first time disapprove of Donald Trump more than they did before. This is a window of opportunity. Do the Democrats, maybe other than you, you're a former union president, do the Democrats have a message that those Americans can be reeled back in with?
Not yet. And remember, the Democrats or the moderates and the voters that we need to get are the ones in the central part of the state. We won by 1 million votes in Massachusetts. Yeah. We're not going to get any more electoral votes if we get more Massachusetts people to vote for the Democrat. but we have to appeal to the people in Appalachia. We lost every single state in Appalachia, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, because they don't think that we care about them. We need to start talking about them. They see us as elitist, an elitist party led by Nancy Pelosi from San Francisco, and we have to start talking about the things that they worry about every single day.
So I'm smiling at you only because almost every time you're here, I bring up the name of the person who I wasn't going to bring up this time, Nancy Pelosi. If those people think you're an elitist party led in the House by Nancy Pelosi, isn't one way to convince them you're not an elitist party is to have someone other than Nancy Pelosi leading the Democrats?
That's one way, but not the only way. And I think that...
Are you ready for that?
I think that
Are you ready for that?
I'm ready for anything at this point.
Including the disappearance of Nancy Pelosi and a replacement by somebody? I don't think
she has to disappear.
I don't mean disappear. I mean as Speaker, as leader of the Democrats.
I think either she has to bring a different message, and I think she's listening. I think she realizes that where the people are that we have to add to our party. So she's trying. I have to give her credit. She's trying.
Would you vote for her if the vote was today?
It depends who was running against her.
Steve Lynch, very quickly, health care. I said at the beginning there may be bipartisan effort to shore up, and you have agreed with Trump that this thing could collapse if there isn't some fixing, particularly on these cost-sharing subsidies. Is bipartisanship real?
I think it is. I think it is. After this last failure, I think some of the Republicans realized that it is going to collapse and that we have a greater responsibility to the people to provide them with decent health care, just like the Democrats. But the only thing there is agreement on is that the current system is unsustainable. On September 21st, the insurance companies are going to just have to decide what plans they're going to offer on the exchange. And right now, we've been having insurers running away from the exchanges. There are fewer and fewer plans available for Americans, and the ones that are there are so expensive that they can't afford them.
Can we end on a local fight? And the only reason I bring it up is not only is it heated, but because it's replicated in communities all across America. This national natural gas compressor station, the Weymouth-Quincy line. The governor's been on with us on the radio, gets tons of calls and emails all the time. Originally, he says, and I'm reading, state doesn't have a role to play. It's a federal rules. Since then, he's gotten more individuals involved but in his administration, but still calling it a federal process. Critics say that the state could end this using the permitting process. Who's right, Baker or the critics?
Well, I think that CZM, that Coastal Zone Management Agency, they've instituted a delay as of today for 90 days, so they've extended it already. I believe that we can use a combination of state and federal pressure to make that project get resited somewhere, further away from a residential neighborhood.
Are you happy with Baker's performance on this issue?
I'm pleased that he has stepped out on this. Yeah, I am.
Good to see you, Congressman.
Good to see you, Jim.
Thank you so much. Congressman Stephen Lynch.